You're listening to Subsound Radio. We bring you streaming and live broadcasting from the capital. This is the Alarpa Podcast. They shared an adventure. They shared a bike. It nearly drove them apart. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel, Alarpa's bike tour of Calle, Alcalá. There, that's the plug done. We can continue with the podcast now after whoring ourselves out selling our own shite, which is free on YouTube and didn't cost us any money to make. So we went around Calle, Alcalá. We did share a bike because before you could take our two bikes when you had the Madrid BC Abono car, but now they seem to change the policy. The bastards. I blame Trump.
What's wrong with this podcast language?
I'm sorry. We're going to clean up from right now. Okay, done. Clean. Okay, so and we went to Calle Alcalá, shared the bike. You did the line shares of the cycling and the explaining and the talking. Calle Alcalá, 10.5 kilometers long, one of the longest streets. Well, it's the longest street in Spain, that's for sure. Possibly the world.
Possibly the world. Or the universe.
I can't imagine another street being that long in any other city. Or maybe I'm just being great. I'm mistaking it.
Nah, you're probably right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Straddling things like casinos, bull rings, rich people, poor people. We saw all of them. And ignore them all.
And continue that, right.
The video has some kind of artistic French shadow play, black and white stuff, kind of going back and forth in timelines. It's like that Sean Penn movie, 7 grams or something, where narratively speaking, it happens in different parts. So that's, we've reached such a stage in our video making, the narrative doesn't have to be linear anymore. It's going to be all over the place. In the good way. In the good way. So this is our first podcast after the Easter break.
It is.
The podcast has risen like the good man himself, and we're going to talk about lots of different things in part C. But before we reach that fabled destination, the place we always have to go to every week, is there anything else you want to say? Any kind of like preamble you want to add to?
Any more plots?
Any more plots? Any more bull shite? Because I can't swear anymore in the podcast.
No, I think that's enough for this part.
Okay, very good. So momentarily, us join part 1. That's also an example of non-linear storytelling. So returning briefly to the topic of our soon-to-be award-winning documentary, Alarpa's bike tour of Calle Alcalá, you mentioned in your breathtaking tour that certain parts of Calle Alcalá had the intellectual set meeting in bars and discussing this, that, and the other. Do you remember where that was?
Correct. That was when we were in the park.
Well, I know where you said it. I was there holding the camera. What part of Calle Alcalá?
I know. Well, it was more towards the center, obviously. Just, more on the posh side.
Like Serrano.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, are any of those cafes still in existence?
Well, there were 2 or 3, yes. But recently, one of them has closed, and it was quite a
big deal, yeah.
Yeah, big deal, yeah. And another one, well, that was called Embassy, which features in many, well, that's already in Castellana, but kind of like coming down from that area. And it features in many books and even films, because it was a place where basically like foreign nationals met during the Spanish Civil War
Yeah.
and exchanged information and so on.
Yeah. The Spanish Civil War attracted a lot of celebrities. It was like a cause celebrity. And sometimes they didn't quite get it. So we talked about this in one podcast when we went to the Filmteca in La PS. Ernest Hemingway, for example, used a WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, as his protagonist in For Whom the Bell Tolls. And what didn't really reflect the character of the people fighting. The other celebrities that were attracted to these cafes in Madrid, do you know much about them? What's the perception of Spanish historians of them? Were they just war tourists? Like Susan Sarandon or Sean Penn might appear in a war zone in the modern times and get the pictures and F off again. Were these guys really engaged with the Civil War, or were they just kind of superficial?
Well, I don't know if there were so much celebrities. I mean, these ones that we're talking about, the cafes, or perhaps it's because I'm not so interested in the celebrity part of it. So I know more about kind of like journalists and even like people that worked in the embassies themselves and as spies.
Yeah.
And so on. And well, normally from kind of like the other side of the political spectrum, and they were just here, getting information. And in recent years, there's been like a couple of famous books and novels that have focused on that, or that has a background to the story. So that's why people have started looking into it, because it's quite a, don't know,
it's
romantic kind of.
Well, it's very present in popular culture, no?
Yeah.
Which isn't such a bad thing, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But yeah, reading books like by Laurie Lee, an English poet who fought in the Spanish Civil War, he does talk a lot about the bars, but more in a normal sense. Congregate bars like soldiers will do, and there wasn't any of that glamour attached. So I think, like in every situation, every event, there's different spheres of it, and certain circles congregate in certain areas, and people like Laurie Lee and the normal grunts might be experiencing the war in a different sense. And of course, with any war, the Second World War that came after, you had the home front, you had children going to the countryside, women in the factories, and the men on the front. So everybody was experiencing the war in different ways. But what you mentioned about the popular culture aspect is actually quite interesting, because I was reading in a newspaper the other day, picked one up for the first time in 20 years. It's actually quite entertaining. They tell you what's happening in the world every day.
Every day.
How do they do
and
that?
And it's up to date.
It's up to date, yeah. So, big news. Berlin Wall has collapsed. Didn't know that. So there was a thing about how basically Call of Duty, which is a series by Activision, it's a computer game. They were famous for making World War II games, amongst other games, but then the series Call of Duty went to future conflicts and became progressively more modern or far into the future. But their next title is going to be bringing it back to the Second World War, and a lot of people are excited because that's a very popular playground or battleground for gamers. And there's an article by this historian who teaches or lectures about history and video games and history and popular culture, and how historians should celebrate this happening, because that's how a lot of people will engage in history. And now a lot of games are taking a very conscious effort to make it realistic and to stay very faithful to the conflict. The last game that was about World War One was Battlefield 1, and the developers spent months researching every aspect of this battlefield, costumes, effects, the characters, the people involved, and everything. And apparently, I haven't played it myself, is a very immersive experience, but it's also a very emotional experience, where you can see the effects of war as much as you can in the video game. Obviously, it doesn't compare to the real thing. Probably doesn't even compare to the art that can happen in a movie that will evoke certain emotions, but it's still something that's positive to experience it through a certain way. And it's true to how people might be watching movies or TV shows about the Spanish Civil War and see these references to cafes and people spending time there, and that will inform their perception and their understanding of the Spanish Civil War. So even though they're not maybe learning about it directly, they're still getting a pretty accurate impression of what it was like in certain circumstances. And of course, if they're more motivated or more moved to learn more about it, they can do that, obviously. So this whole relationship between history and popular culture, not a lot of people have explored it. Maybe on surface level you might think it's superficial, or video games, for example, since I brought it up.
mind do it justice. But I think it's an avenue that increasingly in the future people can capture historical moments and historical events faithfully, but also in an entertaining way maybe as well. So I remember last year I was playing. What was it called? It was
Gears of War.
Not Gears of War. That's not World War II. That is definitely not World War II. I can't believe I've forgotten the name of it. It was like a First World War game developed to educate specifically. I mean, the sole mission was to educate. You didn't kill anybody in the game. Valiant Hearts is what it is. What it's called. You play an American, French father, and a German guy, and all their the different perspectives of the war, and it's very moving. And it's very beautifully rendered. The scenes are fantastic, and it is charming and idyllic in certain respects, and it's an entertaining game and video game in another sense, and also overall very very educational, and it's wonderful. So yeah, so it's nice. So and like Expanse of the War, for example, has never been covered in video games or in movies in such a deep way. So once they're tired again of World War II, which I'm sure they will, maybe that could be a profitable avenue, and it could have a positive effect of having people learn more and engage more with this kind of topic. No?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good way of approaching certain kind of public that might not,
Yeah.
get to know about history in so much depth in any other way. So
Yeah.
why not?
Why not? Exactly. It's certainly new, and history always has to stay relevant, no? And history repeating itself, video games repeating themselves, it's a perfect marriage. So, moving on, today we went to a Senegalese restaurant.
Or was it Somalian?
It was Senegalese. It said so on the poster. So previously we went to an Ethiopian restaurant. This was quite different though, wasn't it? Because
It was very different.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with African restaurants. Ethiopian restaurant is more like this huge slice of bread, basically. It sounds like a sliced pan. No, it's like bread rolled out, and then you kind of tear off pieces of it, then use that to pick up the food. I think we've spoken about this in another podcast before. You dip it into sauce or whatever, and it's quite nice. This is a little bit different. A lot of rice-based dishes, no?
Lots of rice, lots of meat.
And potato mixed in as well, and these sauces and these pineapples and all these different flavors. Well, I think pineapple's on the menu, no?
Well,
No,
I don't think so.
maybe it wasn't.
Peanut sauce.
Oh, peanut sauce.
Yeah, I didn't taste of peanut.
It was a great combination, yeah. It was great because it's in Nelson Mandela Square in Lava PS, which is like the shitty end of Lava PS. The building doesn't look very
I
good.
thought you weren't gonna show it.
It's an adjective, so it makes sense. If it's a noun, it's a swear word.
Yeah.
But if it's an adjective, it's just descriptive.
Oh,
Purely artistic. And they didn't even have a card machine. I had to go wandering the streets for hours before I found money.
Hours and hours.
I came back, you were washing the dishes diligently. But no, it's actually really good. Lava PS, if you don't know it, is a really wonderful neighborhood because it has huge African and Indian influence. And I wrote about this, and I'll put it on our website, elarpa.net, over the weekend.
Please do.
Long weekend, so I have plenty of time to do this. Yeah, so we entered into the competition actually, didn't we?
We did, yes.
And we
And then took it out.
Took it out?
Well, we entered it and then got it out.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Well,
They rejected it.
they rejected it.
We didn't win.
I was just trying to be diplomatic.
What's the Spanish word for fix?
Yeah, it's tongo.
Tongo. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
So tongazo.
Tongazo.
Tongazo total.
Tongazo, right.
Oh there.
Sí.
Joe dear. So
Oh
it
my.
they are gilipolleses. So yeah, the tango. Well, obviously not a tango, but you read some. I didn't bother reading any of the other entries that won because once I didn't win, I didn't want to know about
That's
it.
it.
I shut that stuff down. But you read some of the stories. What made the cut?
Yeah, I read one or two. One because it was very short, so it was going to read.
Good way to choose, yeah.
Yeah, I was literally impressed. And then another one, well, a couple others. One was kind of like commonplace. I didn't think very original. And one was like fairly decent.
Yeah. Very decent.
Fairly decent.
Okay, very good. What were they writing about? What's inspiring Madrid at the moment?
Well, the only thing that you had to do to be in the competition was to include the word book.
Yeah.
So it's good because in reality the word book in Spanish, you can also use it to say, for example, in the first person, I get rid of something,
Oh yeah.
or that's the same words, or you can use it to say I'm free. So, well,
The
not,
pun-
not
the-
everybody used it as
The PP is quite high. The pun potential for Libro.
indeed. Yeah.
I not only did my entry not win, which was our entry because you translated it and everything we do is ours. Especially this podcast because we're both here always. But your entry, which is Libro typed 20 times, also didn't make the cut. I mean, in a sense, there's no narrative structure to it, but Libro,
Yeah,
for 2 pages at full caps.
It was a drawing of a book made by the word libro, yes.
Oh yeah, quite clever. Like Brasilia, and Brazil is the shape of an airplane. Do you know that?
Not really.
Well, it is.
I'll check them up.
No, you don't have to. I just told you. So that was a fix, and also we entered a play competition and a poetry competition. We didn't win the latter. So,
failure.
but the real joy is taking part, obviously, and all that jazz. That's the most important part. So you're off to Jaén.
Oh my god. Yes.
Yeah.
In like 10 days.
In 10 days,
Still
okay.
some time.
So we'll cover that maybe in more depth in next week's podcast.
Yeah, certainly.
And just going back quickly before we go to part 3, back to the video. As you said, it is on our YouTube channel. You can also find a link to it on Elapro1, which is our Twitter page. Have you seen? I tweeted about it yesterday.
I haven't.
I use a very snazzy picture as well of you in the car, black and white.
Should I worry?
No, you look quite elegant in it.
Alright,
So-
okay, well, that
so-
makes a change.
Heavily photoshopped, so don't worry. But it's actually really fun because I mean we went there to make a video about Calle. Then we discovered it was too busy to cycle anywhere, and we didn't have that much time to
In the
cycle.
afternoon.
And we went in the morning as well. The day we actually shot, and then 10.5 kilometers, as we mentioned, is too long. So basically, we got one bike because we couldn't get 2 bikes, and we went around the park in
Just went
circles
round and round.
for hours talking about Calle and showing some random pictures. So in a way, bit of a joke, but in another way, you can still get a slice of life, get an impression of
It's
what.
a joke in itself. It's a new genre.
Well, I noticed that a lot of YouTube videos are like that now. Where it's just kind of like, well, there's a story there, but it's not so direct, and it's just you kind of get a sense of things. And
You can watch it in a deep way for the story, or you can watch it in a recreational.
yeah, it's a lot
Way for the
of
crack.
layers. And not to give any spoilers, but somebody falls off their bike.
And it's not me.
It's me. So. And 2 operations later, I'm back in business. So that's been a quick catch up. We'll probably give you a more structured podcast next week on a specific topic. I think we're going to
Or not.
or not, depending on our whim. But we're going to an exhibition about art and cinema, I think.
Yes,
So
yeah.
maybe next Monday. So
Indeed.
that will be quite interesting. And also we'll go shopping around LPS for some Indian gear for the aforementioned Jaén Bollywood tour. So watch out, Jaén. It's known in Spain as the Chungo town.
It's the high end.
It's a very bad place to go. There's no culture there. But you're gonna break some there. No,
People are gonna love you for this.
I'm joking because there was a cultural festival that I actually was at last year or 2 years ago. You knew that. I told you about that.
No, you were in the city,
Exactly.
but not at the festival.
No, I was in the festival. Well, I wasn't actually at the festival. I saw the festival. I wasn't participating in the festival.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I definitely communicated this to you at some point.
Good is bad.
No, it stays it. So, momentarily join us for the obligatory part 3. our next podcast. Maybe we've San Isidro, protests, the Maybank holiday. So
Yeah.
much is happening.
So exciting.
You're helping your parents move.
Yeah, so exciting. That's the best thing out of it all.
I have to hear about it, which is almost like the same thing.
Yeah,
That's pretty much it for today's podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Check out Joe Rooney for his podcast, Bill Burr, the Guardian Football Network, our podcast, again, to give us some more viewers, our listeners, and our videos, and our Twitter, and our Facebook, and our classes, if you want classes and you're from Madrid, and you just want to have a candy, well, we're not available for that, but we are available for other cultural insights. So thank you very much for listening so far. This is Enda from the Ep5 podcast saying ciao ciao.
And Maria say bye.
Arrivederci. You're listening to Subsound Radio. We bring you streaming and live broadcasting from the capital. This is the Ep5 podcast.